Hey everybody, my name is Caleb, and for those of you that don't know me, I recently changed fields. I left education after 9 years of teaching and moved into the business world. When I announced that change, I received lots of messages from friends, colleagues, and people who follow the channel asking about the process that I used to figure out how to leave education, how to find a new career field, and how to prepare myself for that process. In this video, I'm going to lay out the entire process that I took from beginning to finish of how I figured out that I wanted to leave education, what I did to find a new career field, what I did to prepare for that process, and what the application interview process looked like. The first and most important step of the process is figuring out if you even want to leave education. When I was figuring out if I wanted to leave teaching, I would use a simple 3-part test to check and see where I was. I evaluated myself on 3 different areas: time, salary, and fulfillment. I gave each of those areas 10 points, 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, and I analyzed where I was relative to where I am in my career and my life. For example, relative to other people my age with my experience, my salary was pretty decent. So my salary score when I was a teacher was relatively high. However, my time score was relatively low. As many of you know, being involved in education, specifically an extracurricular activity, is very time intensive. I found that my time score, when compared to my friends in the professional world, was substantially lower than what they were scoring. And finally, overall fulfillment. For many of us in education, we are passionate about what we do. My overall fulfillment score was much higher than my friends. But when I tallied up the numbers overall, I found that in comparison to my friends who had regular jobs, that my overall score was lower than them. This led me to realize that I probably needed to leave education despite it being my passion. I'm going to pause here for a brief interruption. As I was editing my video, I realized that I forgot to include the scores for both my old and current position. If you'll notice here, in my band director score, I have a fulfillment level of 10. I loved everything about being a band director, all the things that were specifically related to being a band director. But the time commitment, as you can clearly see, was really, really low on my score. Just a few months into my new position, and I'm already scoring 5 points higher than my quote-unquote dream job of being a band director. I'm interested to know what your scores are for your positions. Let me know. After taking that test several different times over the course of several months, I realized that it was time for me to leave education. The next part of the process is making it real. Writing down these next few steps made the transition real for me. The first thing that I did was I set a goal, a timeline of when I wanted to be out of education. In my personal case, I set a 1-year goal. At the end of the 2020-2021 school year, I gave myself 1 full year to begin the process of looking for and finding a new job. Once I wrote that goal down, it became tangible. It became a goal that I could hold myself to, and I was able to work my entire timeline backwards from that goal. Now that I had decided that I wanted to leave education, I had no idea what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, or what type of job I was looking for. For many of us in education, it's difficult for us to imagine working in another industry or another field because we are so passionate about what we do. For many of us, the career has been the number 1 priority in life. Helping students or building a program or chasing that passion of being a teacher has been the number 1 priority that we've set our career and life around. It is important if you're leaving education to understand that you now have the freedom to set other priorities. Which is why after you figure out that you want to leave teaching and after you've set your timeline, it is important to write down your priorities in life. Now, there are tons of videos that can help you out on how to figure out what your priorities are, but I would venture a guess to say that many of us have only 5 or 6 priorities in life. And for me, none of my priorities were centered around creating an incredible band or being a super intense band director. What I found that my priorities were involved spending time with my fiance, spending time with my family, going and doing my hobbies, or taking care of my health. These priorities helped frame the career that I was going to look for. Now that I was no longer looking for a job based on my passion, I could look for a job that fit my priorities, and I could find a job that best fit the lifestyle that I was looking to have. This paradigm shift is going to be incredibly important for those of you who are leaving education and have only known a passion for education. It's totally normal to have no idea what you want to do. In fact, when I began the process, I had no idea what I wanted to do. This is why my timeline and my priorities helped frame my entire search. I recommend writing down your priorities and keeping them in a place where you can see every day. For me, my priorities were written down in my journal, and I visited them quite often. Now that you've figured out that you want to leave teaching, you have a timeline in place, and you know your priorities, it's time to start figuring out what career is next for you. In order for me to do that, I needed to know what aspects of my job I liked that I could be looking for in a new career. So I wrote down all of the things that I could think about that I enjoyed about my job that were not specifically related to music itself. For example, I really and honestly enjoyed connecting with all of my students and watching them grow over time. So I wrote down, I enjoy individual connections and helping people grow over time. I found other attributes like that and put that in a column marked pros. I also found aspects of my job that I didn't like. For example, I did not always enjoy the unwritten or unrequired things that we were required to do. So I knew that going forward, I was going to be looking for a job with clear-cut boundaries. If you go through and find all of the things that you like and don't like about your position from a perspective of transferability, that will give you an idea of what to look for in the next job. So now you have what your priorities are in life, what you like about your current position, and what you don't like about your current position. All of this is going to frame how you look at a given position when you start surfing the job boards. Now that you have all of your priorities lined up and you know what you're looking for in a job, it's time to start the change. There are tons of articles and videos out there that suggest different career paths for teachers who are leaving education. That's not what this video is for. What you should do, and what I did, was just pick a few of those job titles and go on the different job boards and look at the job descriptions for all sorts of different job titles. As you're reading these job descriptions, see if they line up with your priorities. See if they potentially line up with your pros and cons. If they do, make a list of potential career fields that you could see yourself working in based on the job description and how they line up with your priorities and your pros and cons. At this point, you now have an idea starting to shape of potential career fields. You should be able to narrow it down to 2 or 3 potential career paths. With all of this groundwork set, it's now time to get a move on it. You're going to want to update your resume. And this was a lesson that I learned very quickly. Our education resumes are not equipped for the business world. There's an entire YouTube genre full of how to overhaul your resume. There's also an entire marketplace full of professional resume writers who will help you overhaul your resume. I recommend that you find somebody professionally who can do this for you. I personally hired a resume writer who is up to date on the current trends and how to maximize the algorithm searches that various companies use when filtering resumes and applications. I did spend a couple $100 paying a professional resume writer to overhaul my entire resume. A professional resume writer is going to be up to date on the current trends of what hiring managers and recruiters are looking for. They're also going to be able to optimize your resume for the algorithm filters that many companies and corporations use. Many of the resume writers will offer packages where they build your cover letter and overhaul your LinkedIn. For me, this was well worth the cost, as my LinkedIn received way more views after I had it overhauled than before. The resume, cover letter, LinkedIn experience, though expensive, I feel was worth it in the long run. I feel that many of the hiring managers and recruiters looked at my resume more seriously after it was updated, and I feel that I got many more responses after the resume overhaul than with my original resume. Now that you have your priorities straight, your timeline, your pros and cons, your updated resume, your updated cover letter, and your updated LinkedIn, it's now time to begin applying. For me, I began applying for certain positions that I thought would transfer my teaching skills well. Learning and development, corporate education, positions like this. And what I found through the process, and what you will find, is that your job search is going to take you to different areas. When I began, I absolutely did not think that I would be in an account manager position, but that's where the job search took me. As I got further into the application process, I began casting a wider and wider net into different career paths and different job titles. I found that certain job titles gathered me more attention than others, and where I ended up was not at all where I started. So in your application process, be sure to look at all sorts of applications. Look at the job description and see if the skills on your resume match what the skills are in the job description. Also, if you're able, I would recommend paying for the premium LinkedIn subscription. This service will allow you to message the people who are posting some of the jobs. And I know that in my current position and in several of the other positions that I interviewed for, I messaged the person that posted the job and they actually commented on how few people do that. It's a nice extra way to get your name in front of the people who are looking through all the resumes. Overall, I would recommend that in your application process, be flexible. Understand that you were in education in the first place because it was your passion. And if you're looking to leave education, it is likely that you will no longer be prioritizing that passion. Though I don't eat, breathe, and sleep account management, I still very much love my job because of the way I'm able to fit my job around my priorities in life. And leaving education isn't for everybody. For some of you, if you took that test at the very beginning and you scored over 20, let's say that you were nearly at a perfect 30, leaving education isn't for you. But for those of you that are looking at leaving education, you are not alone. Like I said, I receive messages all the time, every single week from educators who are looking to leave the field. It is scary, and it can be really, really daunting. If you follow these steps and if you follow this process, I feel confident that you can manage your own way out of education and into a field that will bring you more happiness. As always, thanks for watching.